This is my mission. And I will not fail.
I want to talk to people about what this is and what we're actually doing.
Some of the content they put out might be a little bit more lighthearted. That's for certain types of people, but the property itself could benefit from being just a little bit more adult.
And I feel like there's such an appetite for that kind of stuff, talking about all of the things we could do, but Disney would never do. Yeah.
You know, and I'm sitting there watching that and I'm going, no, there would be a lot more blood and a lot more if he got hit with that.
Our film just kind of asks those questions to the Star Wars universe. We can really make a whole different thing and a new path to walk down with these characters. And
No pun intended.
Pun intended.
Pun intended.
I did that on purpose. Oh, hey, Mike.
Jim,
How you doing? What's going on?
how you doing?
I don't know. We've been setting this up for about an hour now.
Yeah.
And we've been filming all day. I'm tired.
I'm pretty tired.
We put a lot of work into what we filmed today. I appreciate you coming out, by the way.
I appreciate you coming up with this, man.
Yeah. I want to talk to people about what this is and what we're actually doing. And why we're holding lightsabers and what what the film is and where it came from, what all this stuff is, why are we doing this, why are we filming on the stage and all that stuff. And just let people know what is the film. So let's take it back all the way from the jump of when we first met, because we were working at a restaurant together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I forget who it was that introduced us, but they were like, I was having a conversation with someone, and they were like, "Oh, you're a filmmaker," and I was like, "I want to be. I mean, I think I was in high school or
Yeah, you were going to school for it. No, I think you were a freshman in
freshman in college.
college for it, yeah.
And I was just like, "Yeah, I'm a filmmaker. I want to be a filmmaker. I'm going to school for it." And they were like, "Oh, talk to Mike. He's an actor."
Yeah, and I've been acting. I had been in a bunch of stuff at the time, and I got my start in theater in high school, and then I graduated and got with a coach in New York, and I did various different films, got in the union, and it kind of just took off from there. And when we met each other, it was kind of like you had two people that had a very similar vision, because my goal in wanting to be an actor, I grew up watching guys like Jean-Claude Van Damme, Jackie Chan, making, I wanted to be like them, making my own movies, making things that I was going to enjoy being in, because I believe in never waiting for an opportunity. And
we got sick of waiting, so we started making our own.
Yeah.
And we started doing that together, and I think we started working on a variety of short films, and always on the back burner, there was always Star Wars film of some sort.
Right.
And I think we just took our sweet time getting to it, and we're still taking
putting
our
it
time.
lightly.
It's putting it very mildly. To give you guys a time frame, I'm a freshman in college, and that had to be like 2014 or so, maybe 2015 at that point. I don't know when exactly.
I think it was 2015. I think that was when I started there.
Right. And then we started working together on a variety of films. I think it was all pre the new trilogy, because when we came up with the character that you play, his name was Railon.
Right.
And we were like, oh, that's awesome. And then Star Wars came out and was like, The Force Awakens, look at this new important character named Rey. And we were like, oh, well, we can't call our character Rey anymore. Because all the things that we're filming in our short film, though it's separate from the Star Wars universe, it's all connected. And I didn't want to...
Yeah.
I've been adapting the story over the years to kind of work with the canon Star Wars universe.
Right.
Because I wanted to be able to say like, hey, this is a part of it, but it's its own thing, it's separate. And I think when we started too, because you wanted to approach it with this big action, very R-rated. Yeah. so we always had the intention of being like, and I think too, when we first started talking about it, it was like Disney just bought it and like acquired it fully.
Yeah.
And that's when this new trilogy kind of came to fruition, and we had been talking already about like, oh man, the rumor is that they're going to make Star Wars super childish and they're going to kind of ruin it. And I think there's a place for Star Wars. It's such a big universe that
it's so vast. There's so many stories to tell, and I don't think there's any reason why. I mean, in that you have so many different kinds of audiences. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I feel like what is the saying? There's an ass for every seat. You know what I mean? Like they're some of the content they put out might be a little bit more lighthearted. That's for certain types of people, but I think that I always thought that the property itself could benefit from being just a little bit more adult, a little bit harder, a little bit darker, and I think that's the direction that we wanted to go in.
Yeah, we immediately were like talking about all of the things we could do, but Disney would never do.
Right.
And it was just like, we could totally build something here with an R rating or that kind of idea. I mean, we have swords that are lasers that cut through everything. And when people get hit in the movies, they just, they keel over instead of being brutally cut in half. And I think though there's plenty of room for the more kid-friendly type stories, there's this whole avenue that Disney is not exploring with more R-rated content, heavier hitting stuff. And I never tried to approach the film that we wrote with like, let's just make it R-rated for the sake of R-rated. But I wanted to lean into it a little bit to kind of show the realness of what happens when you hit someone in the head with a laser sword.
Yeah. Because it was in the first Star Wars ever when Obi-Wan is on, what was it? Was he on the Death Star? When he's fighting Darth Vader.
Right.
And Vader hits him.
Escaping. I don't know if they're on the Death Star. I forget exactly where they were, but they have their fight.
No, he wasn't. They weren't on the Death Star. They were on.
That was after.
Yeah. But him and Vader are having a fight, and then remember he just kind of like stands there and allows Vader to like hit him, and he disappears.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sitting there watching that, and I'm going, nah, there would be a lot more blood and a lot more if he got hit with that.
I mean, so the thing with Star Wars too, and these laser swords, and the fact that they are like searing hot 10,000 degree blades cutting through people, it would cauterize your wounds right away. So I don't necessarily think it would be so bloody, but he's falling into chunks. There's reasons that over the years, Star Wars fans have come up with all these fan reasons, and then the movies kind of told different stories. The Clone Wars cartoons told different stories, and they forced it to make sense. They literally used the Force to say, hey, this guy didn't fall into 5 pieces when Darth Vader cut him in half because of, like, the Force. And, you know, it was just like, let's just cut some people in half. And it doesn't have to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. It doesn't have to be, but, like, the random stormtroopers that get hit, I think we've only ever seen one get cut in half, and it's not even from a lightsaber. It's in the Kenobi series. A guy falls off a cliff through like a laser fence, and he just gets cut in half. And I'm like, that's awesome, Disney Plus. Thanks for giving us one.
Yeah.
But
and just to give credit towards a lot of the stuff that's been coming out, you know, when you take something like The Mandalorian and the way that was filmed, The Mandalorian is a little bit more darker and more adult, and just the way that they filmed it, and like the scenes where they're fighting stormtroopers and it's much more brutal.
Yeah.
You know, especially the episode where Boba Fett comes back into it and they're all fighting amongst the rocks. He was whipping their ass.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. You know, and that was what I always wanted to see. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think that's a good direction to go in.
I think that's an avenue too that Star Wars, for whatever reason, doesn't explore, is the bounty hunters, the darker, the grittier.
Yeah.
And they've touched on it a little bit here and there. They've kind of poked their heads in it, you know, but they haven't quite fully leaned into it. And I feel like there's such an appetite for that kind of stuff. And I think that world that we want to create, the subworld of like the R-rated side of Star Wars, that's where all that stems from. And I think though your character isn't necessarily a bounty hunter, it's certainly an avenue that he can go down, and he has to deal with some unsavory folks like Boba Fett and other criminals and bad people in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And your character is... Let's talk about your character a little bit. Railon's motivations... I wanted to create a character that was neither good nor bad. They're not Sith. They're not Jedi. There's a gray Jedi as well that is a Force user that tries to, they're balanced, and yet there's so many different things. But the one thing that I've never seen in Star Wars is a character that outwardly hates the Force.
Right.
In all its forms. And I think that's one thing that once I kind of got a new perspective on what the Force is, you kind of think about it differently. So I've been thinking about this differently. I think about the Force differently because I forget how it clicked or why it clicked, but the Force is this energy throughout the whole universe that kind of controls things,
right,
and manipulates things and guides things. And for Jedi, it guides them in a good direction. It guides them to the path of the light and helping people. And sometimes you're fighting in wars and doing crazy things and doing bad things. And for Sith, more often you're doing more straight up evil stuff. And Star Wars is all about balancing itself out. And I've always thought that there should be a character who just is both sides. Is like, no, this is a mess. This is a problem. We have a character who hates the Force, Sith, Jedi, good, bad. For him, it's all bad.
He doesn't care who you are.
Yeah. And I think the reasons for that is tied up in his origin story, which is written. There is a written origin story that, I don't know if I want to give away too much of what that is necessarily. You know it to a degree. You've seen, I've written a whole script. So taking it back into the timeline a little bit, we wrote an original script that tied more into the direct characters of Star Wars, and it greatly involved Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right.
And then that was 2015, 2016 that we wrote that script of the origin story and your master and why your character got his own lightsaber and what happens there. And then we basically wrote one of the opening scenes of Kenobi. I'm very proud of myself for this because I wrote a scene that it was like Inquisitor comes into the town on Tatooine and starts grilling people in Tatooine on like, where is the Force user of this planet? There's a guy here. There's someone here that has the Force. Tell us where they're grilling people to the point where they start hurting people to get the information. And there was a couple lines in the Kenobi show that I was like, I wrote that. I wrote this. Have someone found my script? Oh my God.
Ahead of your time.
I'm ahead of my time. What can I say? But I just was like, oh man, this kind of works. And then when the Kenobi series kind of came out, it relit a fire under me because I was like, oh man, the thing that I wrote is so similar to this. It's so identical or just at least that one scene that I was like, oh man, my story kind of works. And it kind of fits into what they've already created. So it relit a fire under me. We adapted it a little bit because, again, we're trying to fit within the already placed puzzle.
Right.
So we're trying to create a new piece that fits within it. And then that evolved into, it's been like almost 10 years that we've been slowly working on this character.
Yeah, little by little. Yeah.
So, you've aged. Thank you. In a nice way. You've gotten older. We've both gotten older, and our things changed. And we were like, you know what? The origin story maybe doesn't make sense anymore. Maybe we'll go back and tell that later. But I think telling something where we jump ahead and just show your character sort of in his prime.
It is, yeah.
Because the origin story, you're just getting started. Mm-hmm. You get a kyber crystal for the first time. You get your lightsaber. Later on,
you fast forward.
Fast forward.
Complete, just badass.
Yeah, he's a little. Basically, I wanted your character to, in his hatred of the light and the dark side of the Force, you wind up inadvertently through that path that you're walking, coming across many Jedi and many Sith, and you have a hatred for both of them. It doesn't matter what they are. They're using the Force. it's not even the people that have the Force, like the Jedi or the Sith. It's the Force within them. And because they have so much of the Force's energy flowing through them at all times, and they're using their abilities to lift things and whatever, the Force is very connected to these people, and your character senses that and knows that this is a person that I have to take off the chessboard.
Right.
Yeah. Or some other thing that, there's a way that your character destroys the Force that is really interesting. It's a sort of a ritualistic thing that he does to eliminate the Force from the galaxy. And you can only do it in little pieces. You can't really do it in a major way.
Right.
Maybe down the line, cut ahead 10, 15 years, maybe your character learns more about how to destroy the Force faster and easier. But right now, your character is sort of going around killing Jedi and eliminating the Force that flows through them straight up from the galaxy. Because he's trying to actually destroy the Force. Because he believes that the Force is this sort of puppeteer controlling everybody.
Right.
And everybody is just at the will of the Force. I'm one with the Force is with me. It's every character is controlled by the Force. Every character, every thought they have, every manipulated thing, the Force is twisting all that to whatever it wants it to be, whether good or bad. It balances itself out. And your character, for all of his flaws, the one thing driving him is that he wants to be free, and he wants everyone else to be free.
Right.
So the one way to do that is to get rid of the Force.
It's like he's not inherently bad. He's not good either. He's just doing what he thinks is right. And I know that there's probably some people wondering, well, how can he do all this? Like, how can he, fight these people? What is it about him? I don't want to give too much away, but he has some special ability to be able to go up against these people.
One of the things that I pulled from a little bit for that special ability is from the Jedi Fallen Order game. Is Cal Kestis is a new Jedi that we're revealed to in this new video game, and this is, again, over the course of 10 years developing this character. So this idea that this new ability that you have is similar to his ability. He has this ability, I think it's called psychometry. I'll put a little blurb on the bottom of the screen, like definition, like what this is. But Cal can touch objects, and then he can sense echoes of like what has happened to that object, or maybe people that have been around that object. He can hear voices and sort of see scenes that have played out with it. And it can remind him of how to do certain things with the Force and manipulate things. So he has this sort of psychic connection to the Force. And I thought, well, what if my character Railon can pull the Force from people, move the Force in and out of objects, or do things with the Force that maybe nobody else can.
Right.
And then, without letting the Force escape, destroy the objects, things like that. So there's different ways that he uses this ability. Mainly the thing that I think is easiest to him is just killing people. And killing people that are very Force sensitive. And I think he starts to undergo these trials of his own as he's going, and he kind of makes it his mission to eliminate the Force from the galaxy. And in this film that we are teasing, that we want to do, which the working title is A New Path, because your character's walking a new path, the one that Star Wars hasn't seen yet. Right. You come across some other characters that are Force wielders, and I think they're pretty, the way I wrote them was that they are pretty generically good. Maybe they have some complicated things and whatever, but for the most part, I wanted them to be like straight up Jedi. Mm-hmm. And they believe in the Force, they believe in the good side and the light, and then you show up and you start twisting their thoughts on it. And I wanted to, basically I'm just asking the question, does this character's motivations make sense? Yeah. And who better to ask than actual Jedi? And I think how that turns out in the end.
Yes, I do.
You come across these Jedi, and we don't want to give anything away with how the film ends, but there is an R rating.
It's going to be very exciting.
It's going to be fun. And again, we're action lovers. You love old school action movies, and I'm a big action movie fan myself. So we wanted to tell a story, and we've been working on fight choreography, and There have been some days where we're just hitting each other with broomsticks, kind of just prepping on how these fights play out and interactions with each of the characters. And, I think more can be revealed about the other characters in the film later. Maybe once we cast those people, we'll do another similar interview to this, where we get them all in a room and kind of sit down with everybody and say, we're playing these characters. How do we feel about this? But yeah, I'm excited. This is gonna be a fun film.
Too. No, yeah, it's different. That's what's exciting.
Yeah. It's such a big universe that Star Wars is already, and to find a path in it that no one's ever walked. That I don't want to toot my own horn here, but it's something that just hasn't been done. And I looked at a lot of like the biggest villains over the course of the last 10 years too, and I kind of modeled pieces of that, or pieces of certain villains and characters into Railon. And I also wrote the character directly for you. It's like, this guy's angry a lot, so he gets angry easily, and maybe
not that easily.
No, but you're a great actor, so you can pull on that emotion that you have so close to the surface all the time.
Well, thank you.
But you're.
Am I a ticking time bomb? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, in all the best ways, in all the ways that we're going to use for this film, and the bomb goes off. So what this teaser is for the fan film, for the because we have ideas for these characters that I think can be fleshed out to be full-fledged TV shows and feature films and things like that. But we were like, let's get together and just film a teaser for the fan film that is a teaser for the other big things that we want to do, for the teaser, for the origin. It's a teaser of a teaser of a teaser. But this is a very simple shoot that we wanted to make, and I think it's just to get Railon's message across to as many people as possible. So you use this transmitter that we have here. Gotta love Etsy. Etsy has all the best Star Wars props. You can find anything. There's so many talented cosplayers and people that make things. Yeah. So someone made this amazing transmitter, and you hold this out and you send a hologram message. I forget what it's actually called. Transmission.
Holographic.
Yeah. But the first Star Wars movie, Princess Leia, or one of the first in the original trilogy, Help Me Obi-Wan Kenobi, You're My Only Hope. You're doing the exact same thing, but you're sending a message to the galaxy in general, just open line to everybody, saying the Force is out there and it's controlling you. Yeah. And I know how to set you free, and maybe come hang out with me for a little while. And I don't know if you're recruiting people or you're just putting the message out there. I almost wanted to make you sound like a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. So that you could be like...
I think there's also a little bit of an undertone there of like, you can run, you can hide, I'm going to find you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that goes for you speaking to Force users and the Force itself.
Yeah.
And also saying like the Force is out there and it's going to find you. It's going to find everyone.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone can escape from the Force, if it's good, if it's bad. But it's sort of the same question of like, does God exist? And if God exists, why does he do all these cruel things? Why do people get cancer and die? Why do tsunamis happen and towns get flooded? Why do horrible things happen in the universe if God exists? If the Force exists, it can't be all good, because if it's all powerful or if it's not all powerful, and your character's the one asking all these questions, right, and openly going around saying the fallacy of the Force. Let's all recognize that for a minute. And also I have a laser sword of my own. So there's another big controversial thing that we fought over the years. Not fought over, but we just kept bouncing back and forth, is whether or not to make Railon Force sensitive.
Right.
I think inevitably we came upon the idea that like, yeah, he's Force sensitive, and that just fuels his hatred more. Right. That he hates the Force so much and he can't get it out of him, or he can't.
I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
And it's just, it fuels this hatred of yourself and just the hatred of everything, and you just ticking time bomb that's gonna go off. And it just makes sense. It just made more sense, I think, in the end, to also make your character Force sensitive. Because for a while, the idea was that you weren't, and that you would go around with lightsabers, that other people, you just jacked off other people, and just straight up using martial arts to fight Jedi. And that's where I think the ideas kind of started, because it was like, no one's ever just beaten a Jedi with their fists, with their hands, and kicking them in the face, you know?
Because I know people are probably wondering, like, well, how is he able to get close to them when they can just, move things and, and that will all be revealed.
And that was plot holes and stuff, too, that I didn't want to get into either. So I was like, let's make him force sensitive. Let's just give him powers and abilities. And then that led to, now he has this ability to kind of eliminate the force and do all these things. Yeah. So there's a lot of cool story beats that we want to hit with this character, and a lot of cool ideas that we want to bring to the screen. And I think we can do it. And we have these hilts here, too, that we've just been holding this whole time. And I think the black one here is your lightsaber that you crafted. And then this one is of your former master, which, I guess, spoiler alert, you're carrying his lightsaber. He's not around anymore. So not going to give away too much with how that story plays out, but the origin story is written. There's a lot of depth to the character because we've been working on it for so long. Courtesy of Crimson Dawn, these lightsabers are very cool.
Yes.
And we have the NeoPixel versions of them. They're awesome. They have thousands of LEDs within the blades, so when you turn them on, they extend out from the hilt as opposed to like 3 lights within it. And that's where it came up. I bought these fancier lightsabers because I thought we can do practical effects for the film, and obviously you have to go in and do some CGI and some digital painting, repaint the light in, things like that. But the fact that the light already is made by the lightsaber creates this cool effect. So when you turn it on, the red hits you the perfect way that the lightsaber would.
Right.
There's a lot of tricks that we're going to have to pull off.
Definitely. But when you see these things in the dark, though, I mean...
It's super cool. And I mean, insert clip here of Mike turning on a red lightsaber in front of his face. We'll just intercut that in there. But you'll see it's just so awesome, the lighting that you can do, the things that we want to do. And we have a lightsaber fight in the film that I think takes place during the day, and I think one at night as time goes on in the day and it gets a little too dark out. And I think playing around at night is going to be the coolest.
Oh, yeah.
Because the light's so much more prominent.
Definitely.
The red, the purple, and then they're going to have their lightsabers too that are more Jedi. There's blue, green. It's going to be cool.
I'm excited for, the first fight that we choreographed when we went through that. Like, there are so many really cool sequences leading to a brutal ending that, I think that right now, that's the one that I'm super excited to film.
Yeah. We cut off a few heads. We cut off a few arms. We smashed some people into trees. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff. And I think, I didn't want to make this video a crowdfunding. Like, I'm not trying to raise money. I'm not trying to say, hey, give us money. Because I think we're making this film regardless.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a passion project of creativity and hard work. And it's going to take a lot to go into it. We've been filming all day today, and all we did was a monologue in front of a black curtain and then this interview, sit down, and it took all day.
Yeah.
So these things take so much time and energy, and we've been pushing for it for 10 years. Like, we still want to do it, and I think that speaks volumes. Is that we've been, since before The Force Awakens was announced, we've been trying to develop and make this thing.
Yeah.
And I just think the more Disney doesn't lean into the harder stuff, the more I'm like, let's lean into the harder stuff. Let's start cutting some people in half with lightsabers. Let's start doing some cool stuff, because you can
Star Wars John Wick.
Yeah, that'd be really cool, man. I mean, you get Keanu Reeves in the Star Wars universe. He's a fan casting for Revan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everybody wants that, and that I think that would be really cool. I'd love to see a John Wick Star Wars, but you can't do that without chopping some arms off. You can't do that without... And
gotta be a little brutal.
And maybe we pave the way. Maybe we say, hey, there is an R-rated avenue that you can go down, Disney. And it can start with us. It can start with Railon, or Disney chooses not to recognize us, and then we just exist on YouTube or something. And I don't need to have it be a Disney thing. It's not like I'm trying to get there. If Disney calls and says, hey man, let's talk. Cool. I'm game. But at the same time, I just want to make this the best that it can be, period. And if other stuff comes along with that, great. And if not, it's still out there, and I think people will enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, like I said, we're not trying to necessarily get a deal with Disney or anything.
This isn't even something like we're not going to be making any money on this at all. This is a passion project.
Yeah, it is a fan film.
That's exactly what it is.
There is no profit being made here. It's a labor of love. It's really just because we love the Star Wars universe so much. We love all that exists, all the different trilogies. They all have these amazing moments that I'll carry with me forever. And plus the Disney Plus series, The Mandalorian, things like that. You know, I just want to add to it. I want to add to the library of awesomeness that is Star Wars. And I think...
And there's so many really cool shorts and other content on YouTube that just like gets the blood pumping, man. And if that's where this exists, that's fine. You know what I mean? I'd be happy with that.
There's some really awesome fan-made content out there. And I think the more fans do it, the more Disney has to kind of perk up their ears a little bit. They don't have to give in. They don't have to be like, we have to do something.
Right.
Because they're Disney and they own everything.
Right. But there's so many other stories to tell.
There's so much. And I think that's credit to Star Wars as a universe, that there is so much story to tell, because you have the biggest company on earth making so many stories at the same time, and they're just scratching the surface. Right. And I think we can really make a whole different thing and a new path to walk down with these characters.
No pun intended.
Pun intended.
Pun intended.
I did that on purpose. I'm intentional with my puns. But yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a really fun film. I have no idea when we're going to film it. I was hoping to film it 4 years ago, and then the year after that, and then the year after that. And it's just been, with COVID too, and that kind of ended the world. And then now we're kind of back in the full swing of things, back to regular life. And we can, re-pursue this. And that's now that we're kind of back in the regular world and everyone's gotten their shit together.
Yeah.
We can push for this. And I think whether we film this year or even next year, but it's coming up.
It's getting done.
And yeah, it's just going to take a lot of rehearsal and a lot of planning and a lot of, all that stuff. But we're in those stages. We're getting there.
Yeah. This is because we're fans and we want to create something for the fans of Star Wars, something special that they'll really enjoy. And that is our mission. And we will not fail.
That's good, yeah. You don't get that now, but wait till you see this teaser. You'll get it then. But we're just excited. We wanted to just kind of show off all of Railon's motivations and what this film kind of stems off from. The idea that the Force is inherently bad. Whether it's the light or the dark side, doesn't matter. The Force has this sort of negative quality to it, or this... It at least warrants like the question of like, are we cool with this Force controlling everything? And, are we puppets? Is the Force just pulling all the strings? Like, what's the deal? And I think that our film just kind of asks those questions to the Star Wars universe and also delivers it with a bunch of cool fights and dialogue and character development and things like that. But we wanted to ask an overarching question to the Star Wars fans. And I think with the film we do, and this teaser that we're going to show in a minute, is just sort of an intro to that. So yeah, I think we've been talking long enough. We've been really kind of spoiling the whole thing. So I just want people to see it. I can't wait to really put the work in and get this film out there. But for now, we have a little bit of a teaser to show off to people. And I'm just excited for people to kind of get a first glimpse at it.
Definitely. And we really hope you guys enjoy it.
the Force. The Force is around us at all times. If you are hearing this, make no mistake, you are not free. You've been made blind to the truth. The Force guides our actions, influences the events happening around us, and manipulates our thoughts on the deepest levels. You are all prisoners behind bars that you cannot see. Jedi. Sith. Those who believe themselves capable of manipulating the Force, but the Force is the one doing the manipulating. Light, dark users alike. These are the prisoners shackled with the heaviest of chains. We are all puppets. But after you receive this message, you too will see the strings. This is our curse. The truth is, you lack freedom. Freedom from the Force's influence, but I can. I will. Free from its grasp. This is my mission.